Welcome to Honest Questions, where we hope to get honest answers. Visit our website at www.honestquestions.co.uk.
Hello and welcome to our very first podcast. Today we're going to do something completely different than we planned to. We're going to tell you a little bit about us. First, I'd like to introduce my co-host, Steve.
Hello there.
Are you ready for this, Steve?
Well, I'm going to give it a good shot.
Obviously, talking about yourself is not an easy subject, especially when you're talking about your past and things that you're not particularly proud of.
Yeah, it can be a bit daunting at times, can't it?
This whole podcast came about when I was working in an office block in Leeds City Centre, and some of my co-workers was disgusted because there was a homeless man in front of the building, a sleeping bag, basically begging for money. Some of the things that they were saying I was quite upset about, because before I got my degree and got a decent job, I was in the position where they are now today. So obviously I could not say anything to anyone, because we decided to do this podcast because I've known Steve for a few years, and I used to work for him in a company that he owned. We built up a friendship over the years. Right. I will tell my story. That's probably the best way of doing it. When I was younger, I was brought up in a very dysfunctional household. I don't want to go into too much detail at the moment, but I had not a very nice upbringing, should I say. By the time I'd turned 16, I just wanted out of the house. I'd just had enough. Being homeless was a better alternative than living at home at the time, if that makes sense. And obviously when you're homeless, you've got no money, you had nowhere to claim the social security dole or anything like that. Money was tight, and I turned to petty crime. And while I was homeless, I got introduced to drugs, and smoking marijuana, amphetamines, LSD, anything I could basically get my hands on. And my brother came out of prison while I was living on the streets, and he said to me he's going to give me heroin for the first time because he didn't want to not be there when I took it, so he could keep an eye on me. It might sound bizarre now, but at the time it made perfect logical sense. So after trying the drug, I fell in love with it. It's one of them kind of drugs that takes everything away. It numbs you basically, and you're like in your own little bubble. It changes you as a person. You do things that you normally wouldn't do. You lose all sense of morality. All you care about is getting that drug. So I became an addict. And for the next 5 years, I was in and out of prison, taking drugs, whatever I could get my hands on, basically. But all that changed. I met a woman who came to be my wife, and she already had 2 children, and it made me want to be a better person and get off the drugs and get a job and help give them the childhood I never had, basically. So, working, and that's when I started working for you, wasn't it, Steve?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
I was on minimum wage pretty much, doing dog's body work, really.
Labouring, weren't you, mainly?
Yeah. Obviously, I had no qualifications. I could not do anything else. So, I decided I wanted to get the education I didn't have to be able to get a better job, to be able to provide for my family. It were a ready-made family, if you like. Yeah. So I decided to go to college and get my basic education sorted, my English, my maths, everything like that most people take for granted, but I was pretty much completely nearly illiterate.
Well, you were left to run the streets when you were a kid, weren't you, really? So you went to school.
I didn't hardly go to school,
No.
no. It's I think they did a test on me and I had the reading age of a 11 or 12-year-old.
Yeah.
So I wanted to improve on that and work towards getting a job that I was interested in rather than sweeping floors or stuff like that. So after completing my basic education, I found something I really loved doing. We managed to save up and buy a computer when the internet started getting big into this country, and I felt as soon as I used the computer, I knew this was something I wanted to be a part of. I wasn't sure what I could do in the computer industry, but without qualifications I wouldn't be able to do anything. So I decided then I wanted to learn everything I could about computers. I must have took it apart about 12 times, 13 times, and until I knew everything about it, each part that made it work. And when I'd done all that, I wanted to know how applications work, how they made computer. So I started learning computer programming, and that's when I found something that I really enjoyed to do. I enjoyed doing computer programming. So I decided to try and get my degree in computer programming, and eventually I did get my degree in. So from this point to where I was homeless to there, it's like I was a total different person. I'd lost all my teeth. I was my gums were a mess, so I had to get all new teeth sorted. My appearance now is I look a totally different person. But
you look healthy now, don't you?
Exactly. I was gone in the face. I was underweight.
You were a wreck. You were... Oh.
Exactly. It's a big shock to the system, drugs, because all you care about is you don't care about yourself. You care about the drugs. You'd happily walk off the edge of the cliff if there were a big pile of drugs on the other side.
Fix. Yeah.
Exactly. It's
well, I can understand that in a way. With smoking, I used to smoke, and that was hard enough to give up. So I can imagine drugs being a hell of a lot harder.
Well, it's when you're coming off drugs, the amount of pain you go through, and it's hard. It's not easy. The only way I was clean over that 5 years was when I was in prison. Obviously, when you go in prison, you've got to detox off of the drugs. But whenever there was drugs on the wing or things like that, there's a big myth about prisons where drugs can be found in prison, but it's not necessarily everywhere. You just need to know the right people who are getting it brought in, and usually the amount of drugs that you do get in prison is a fraction of the amount that you would get on the outside. 5 times, 10 times the cost.
So exploit you.
Pretty much. It's hard to get in there. It's not easy to get in, so they're taking a risk, and the person on the outside is usually taking a risk bringing drugs in on a visit for their partners or friends or whatever. It's a big risk where they can get jail time for doing it.
Yeah.
So after I was clean and I've now got a degree, I was working in the office block, and after hearing that, I was quite upset about the homeless man outside, because that was me not so long ago. This is why I want to do this podcast, because I believe everyone has a story, and sometimes it's not pleasant, but it's good. I think it's a good way for people to get their side of the story across, because we are all humans at the end of the day.
We all make mistakes, don't we?
Exactly, and I thought this would be a good platform. This is why I don't just want to interview people that have problematic past. I want to interview everyone to hear how they got to where they are today. So I think it'll be a good time to tell you about you, and then we can explain how the podcast actually started.
Yeah, well, I come from a different background, really. Born to a Victorian-style father and mother. Grew up a reasonably decent life. beaten as a kid, but that was normal in them days. Had to work pretty much from being 15, put food on the table because my father was ill. I've worked for the police as a volunteer special constable for a few years and done charity work, been a parish counsellor. I've been married 3 times, got 4 children, so I know a fair bit about life. I've seen a lot of things, but pretty much it's been pretty hunky-dory until I had a heart attack, and Andy used to come round and basically boost me up a little bit because I was really down and suffered from depression due to not being able to work, really. My family, most of my family, deserted me and my friends.
Do you mean desert as in it just didn't
Just
desert
ignored
you,
me.
It happened over time, you
Yeah,
know?
over time, yeah. They just basically...
Lost contact.
They just didn't contact me, didn't ask how I was, or... They just ignored me, really. Just went on with their own lives. And Andy used to come round, we used to potter about with computers and putting them together, mending them. We used to do all sorts of stuff. Do all sorts of different projects, and it kept me more... I think he did it. I think Andy did it more for me, to get me back into society in a way.
So
like
to motivate you.
Yeah, or more like a recluse. I hardly ever went out. You just lose interest when you haven't got a job, and you just feel worthless.
Well, depression is very hard, and I think a lot of people suffer for it in this country.
Yeah.
And the only way, I believe, personally, is to get back on the horse and join in and be a part of society.
It's not as easy as that, though. As you know, it's it can be very daunting, and you can understand why people, like Andy says, end up on the street, because it's a close thing, isn't it, from being lucky and having a house or a wife. And my say, she's working still to keep us in a reasonable lifestyle. So that's one of the reasons why when Andy said, let's do a podcast, we talked about what we'd do and what we'd discuss and things. And it's been over quite a few months now, hasn't it? And it's taken us a while to decide what we were going to do and what sort of people we're going to be interviewing. And in the end, we've decided we're going to be pretty much anybody and everybody.
I don't think anyone is inherently evil or bad. I believe circumstances plays a big factor in most things in life.
Yeah, we didn't ask to be born.
And I want to try and help the people that are in desperate need of help.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are willing to help as well. And if you're one of them people, then please get in touch with us. And we'll see.
Sometimes people are stuck and they don't know who to turn to or who to ask. And we are hoping to help people in that way, where we can put them in touch with the right people. Yeah. Some interviews we've been doing. Well, we've been doing this for the last couple of months, and we wanted to get a few interviews nailed down before, obviously, we released anything. It was it's very daunting and nerve-wracking talking to someone about their lives.
Yeah, it is.
You might have a few and stuff from me.
And me. I mean, there's always people always seem to stammer when it's an awkward question, I think it's very difficult to ask people straightforward and honest question that you think other people would want to hear, and sometimes you feel, should I ask that or not?
Well, the last thing we want to do is offend people, so obviously that is why you'll hear a bit of it, but I'm hoping in time we will get better than that with that.
Yeah, we're starting on a shoestring, didn't we? I mean, we've started with nothing, really. I mean, the stuff we've got has been cheap. I mean, been hard, really, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, that's why we set up a Patreon. That way people can donate if they want to donate. There's no requirements. All we want to do is get people's stories out there. Obviously, we will get better equipment and